Captain G1 stood on the bridge of Sentinel-7, staring at the massive ships that had appeared near Jupiter 3 hours ago. The alien vessels were dark and covered in sharp edges like floating weapons. There were 300 of them. Each one was twice the size of Earth's largest warship. "They're called the Vraktin," said Lieutenant Sunmi, reading from her console. "The computer says they've conquered 12 other species in the last 100 years. Jiwan nodded slowly. She had already read the reports. The Vraktin were known across the galaxy as warriors who took what they wanted. They had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to bow to them. Now they were here at Earth's doorstep. "Captain, incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. "Put it on screen." The view screen flickered to life. A massive alien appeared, its skin gray and rough like stone. Forearms crossed over a barrel chest. Eyes like black marble stared at them with obvious contempt. This was Warlord Thex, commander of the Vraktin invasion fleet. "Humans," Thex said, his voice deep and rumbling. "You have built colonies on 17 worlds. You trade with weaker species. You pretend to be civilized, but you are weak. We have studied you. You have no real military. You talk and talk but never fight." Jiwon kept her face calm, though her heart was beating faster. Behind her, she heard Sunmi take a sharp breath. "The Vraktin Empire claims all human worlds," Thex continued. "You have 30 of your days to surrender. Evacuate your colonies. Bring all your ships to Earth. Submit to Vraktin rule. If you refuse, we will destroy every human in the galaxy. This is not a negotiation. This is an order." The transmission ended abruptly. The bridge fell silent. "Did he just—" Sunmi started. "Yes," Jiwon said quietly. "He just threatened to wipe out humanity." Down on Earth, in the diplomatic quarters of New Geneva, Ambassador Hyunwoo received the same message. He sat in his office, fingers pressed together, watching the recording for the third time. His assistant stood by the door, face pale. "Should we contact the Galactic Council?" the assistant asked. Hyunwoo shook his head. "The Council won't help. They're afraid of the Vraktin. Every species that asked for their help was told to seek peaceful resolution. That's Council language for you're on your own." "Then what do we do?" Hyunwoo stood up and walked to the window. Outside, people walked through the streets, laughing and talking. They had no idea that aliens had just threatened to kill them all. "We do what we always do. We talk, we negotiate. We buy time." "Time for what?" Hyunwoo smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Time for people to remember who we really are." In the military command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Mirai watched the same recording. Around her, dozens of officers sat at their stations, faces grim. When the message ended, she stood up. "Send the signal," she said. "Protocol Nightfall is now active." "General, are you sure?" asked her second-in-command. "Once we start, we can't go back." "They threatened Earth," Mirai said coldly. "They threatened our colonies. They threatened our children." "Yes, I'm sure. Send the signal." Across human space, on 17 colony worlds and hundreds of space stations, people received a simple coded message. To anyone watching, it looked like routine system updates. But humans recognized it. They had been trained for this since childhood. On Sentinel-7, Jiwon received the message on her private console. She read it twice, then deleted it. "Daesung," she called to her chief engineer. "I need you in my office now." Daesung arrived minutes later, wiping grease from his hands. He was young for a chief engineer, barely 30, but brilliant. "You wanted to see me, Captain?" Jiwon locked the door behind him.
Have you ever wondered why Sentinel-7 has so many extra power cores?
Why our shields are 10 times stronger than any other station? Why we have storage bays that are always locked? Daesung blinked. I assumed it was for experiments. Classified research. In a way, yes. Jiwon pulled up a schematic on her screen. This is what Sentinel-7 really is. Daesung stared at the screen. His eyes grew wider and wider. That's impossible. This station would have enough firepower to destroy a small moon." "Not just one moon," Jiwon said. "This station can take on 50 enemy warships at once and win. Every civilian station we built has the same hidden capabilities. Every colony has underground military bases. Every trade ship can transform into a warship in less than an hour. But why? We're peaceful. Everyone knows that." Jiwon's expression hardened. "We're peaceful because we choose to be. Not because we have to be." "Did you ever study Earth's history, Daesung? The real history? The world wars, the nuclear age. The conflicts that almost destroyed us." "Exactly. We nearly killed ourselves fighting each other." When we finally reached the stars, our leaders made a decision. Never again would humanity be caught unprepared. Never again would we be victims. So we built our colonies, we traded with aliens, we smiled and talked about peace. But underneath, we prepared for war. Every generation of humans trains for this. We just hide it very, very well. Daesung sat down heavily. The Vrakten have no idea. No, Jiwan agreed. They think we're sheep. They're about to learn we're wolves in sheep's clothing. Meanwhile, near Jupiter, the Vrakten fleet was celebrating. Commander Vrick stood beside Warlord Thex on the flagship's bridge, watching their soldiers drink and boast. The humans will surrender, Thex declared. They always do. I have conquered 12 species. All of them begged for mercy in the end. Vrix wasn't so sure. She had been studying human transmissions, watching their news broadcasts. Something felt wrong. The humans weren't panicking. Their leaders weren't crying or begging. They were calm. Too calm. My lord, Vrix said carefully. Perhaps we should scout their defenses more carefully. The humans have colonies on 17 worlds. That requires significant infrastructure, significant resources. Thex waved a dismissive hand. They have cargo ships and mining equipment. No warships. Our spies confirmed this. They have perhaps 50 military vessels, all small. We have 300 warships. Each one could destroy 10 of their ships alone. Still, caution might be. Caution is for the weak. Thex roared. The humans will surrender or die. It matters nothing to me. In 30 days, their worlds will be ours. But Vrix noticed something on the scanners. Human ships were moving, but not away from the Vrakten fleet. They were moving into position, forming patterns around the solar system. It looked almost like they were preparing for battle. Impossible, she thought. They wouldn't dare fight us. They're not warriors. Back on Earth, Hyunwoo was preparing for his first negotiation with the Vrakten. He put on his diplomatic robes, checked his appearance in the mirror. He looked exactly like what he was supposed to look like. A soft, peaceful man who solved problems with words. His assistant brought him his briefing papers. The Galactic Council has officially declared neutrality. They won't interfere. Of course they won't, Hyunwoo said. They're cowards. But that's fine. We don't need their help. Ambassador, can we really fight the Vrakten? They've never lost a war. Hyunwoo picked up his papers and headed for the door. That's because they've never fought humans before. They've fought species that evolved on peaceful worlds, species that never knew real war. We're different. We climbed to the top of our food chain by being the most dangerous predators on our planet. We spent 10,000 years fighting each other with increasingly terrible weapons. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times over. And then, when we reached the stars, we decided to hide all that darkness away. He paused at the door and looked back. The Vrakten think they're apex predators. They're about to meet Earth's true children. And we're going to teach them what real predators look like. The countdown had begun. 30 days until the Vrakten expected surrender. 30 days for humanity to reveal its true face. Across human space, hidden weapons powered up. Secret warships emerged from asteroid bases. Soldiers who pretended to be farmers and miners put on their real uniforms. The galaxy thought it knew humanity. It was about to learn how wrong it was. Captain Ji-won stood on her bridge, watching the Vrakten fleet on her screens. Daesung, she said quietly, begin transformation protocols. It's time to show them what Sentinel-7 really is. Yes, Captain, Daesung replied, his voice now steady and determined. Activating military systems now. Deep in the station, hidden panels began to open. Weapons that had been disguised as sensor arrays emerged. Power cores that had been running at minimal capacity surged to full strength. The peaceful space station began to transform into a warship. The Vrakten wanted war. They were going to get one they would never forget. 20 days remained on the Vrakten ultimatum. On Earth, most people went about their normal lives unaware of how close they were to war. But in secret facilities around the world, humanity was waking up. Dr. Borum worked in one of those facilities buried 3 kilometers beneath the Australian desert. She stood in a laboratory filled with machines that didn't officially exist. Her team called this place the Forge. This was where humanity built its darkest weapons. The nanite swarms are ready, reported her assistant, a young man named Taejin. Each swarm can consume a warship's hull in under 10 minutes. Borum looked at the container holding millions of microscopic machines. Each one was programmed to eat metal and reproduce. Release them on an enemy fleet, and within an hour, there would be nothing left but dust. Seal them away, she said. Mark them as last resort only. Doctor, these could end the war before it starts. These could also be used for genocide, Borum replied sharply. We're not the Vraktin. We don't slaughter without reason. These are deterrents, not first strikes. Taejin nodded and carefully stored the container in a secure vault. Borum turned to her other projects. Gravity bombs that could crush ships like tin cans. Electromagnetic pulses that would fry every circuit on a vessel. Biological agents that targeted specific DNA patterns. She had spent 10 years building weapons and she hated every single one. But she understood why they were necessary. Her grandmother had told her stories about the old days, before humanity reached the stars. Wars that killed millions, weapons that could end all life on Earth. Humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Never again, her grandmother had said. We must be strong enough that no one dares attack us, but wise enough never to attack first. Borum touched the locket around her neck which held her grandmother's picture. I hope we're wise enough, she whispered. On Sentinel-7, Daesung was discovering just how much the station could do. Every day he unlocked new systems. Weapons that emerged from hidden panels. Shields that could withstand direct hits from nuclear warheads. Engines powerful enough to move the entire station at speeds that would make it a mobile fortress. This is incredible, he said to Lieutenant Sunmi as they explored a hidden deck. This entire level is filled with fighter craft. There must be 200 ships here. Sunmi ran her hand along one of the fighters. It was sleek and black, covered in materials that absorbed sensor scans. I trained on these, she said quietly, when I was younger. They told us it was simulation training for potential emergencies. Now I realize they were preparing us for war. You knew how to fight? Every human does, Sunmi said. We just don't talk about it. When you were in school, did you have physical education classes? Daesung nodded. Of course. Running, climbing, team exercises. That was basic military training. The science camps we went to as teenagers? Those taught us weapons systems and tactics. The apprenticeships we did before choosing our careers? Military evaluation and specialization. Our entire education system is designed to create soldiers who can pretend to be civilians. Daesung felt his world tilting. Everything he thought he knew about human society was a lie. Or rather, it was a carefully constructed cover. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because you never needed to know. Until now, Sunmi's expression was sad. Most humans live their whole lives without ever having to use their training. They're farmers and teachers and engineers. But if someone threatens us, if someone tries to hurt our families, we remember what we really are. In the diplomatic chamber, Ambassador Hyunwoo was having his third meeting with the Vraktin representatives. Warlord Thex refused to attend personally, sending Commander Vrix instead. She sat across from him, her forearms folded, her expression showing barely contained contempt. You waste our time with talk, Vrix said. 20 days remain. Will you surrender or not? Hyunwoo smiled pleasantly. We're discussing terms. These things take time. There are no terms. You surrender everything or you die. This is simple. Nothing is ever simple, Hyunwoo replied. He poured himself tea from a ceramic pot, his movements calm and practiced. Tell me, Commander Vrix, has the Vraktin Empire ever faced an enemy that fought back effectively? Vrix's eyes narrowed. Several species resisted. All were crushed. But they fought conventionally, didn't they? Ships against ships, armies against armies, direct honest warfare. Hyunwoo sipped his tea. Humans don't fight that way. Are you threatening us? I'm educating you, Hyunwoo said. You see, humans spent thousands of years fighting each other. We got very, very good at it. We learned every dirty trick, every deception, every brutal tactic, and then we learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the best way to win is to make your enemy think you've already lost. Vrix stood up abruptly. You speak in riddles. Surrender or die. Those are your only choices. She left the chamber, her heavy footsteps echoing in the hall. Hyunwoo finished his tea alone. He looked nothing like the soldier he once was. That man had fought in the outer colony conflicts back when humanity was still learning how to hide its military strength. He had killed enemy combatants with his bare hands. He had ordered strikes that destroyed entire installations. Now he wore soft robes and spoke about peace. But underneath he was still a warrior. He just used words as weapons instead of guns. General Mireille stood in the command center, watching data streams from across human space. Her officers worked quietly, coordinating movements of ships and troops. To any outsider, it would look like random civilian traffic. But Mireille saw the pattern. Every human warship was moving into position. Some hid in asteroid fields. Others disguised themselves as cargo haulers. A few had actually been buried on colony worlds, their crews living as miners and farmers until the activation signal came. "General, the Vraktan sent scouts to our colonies," reported an officer. "3 ships investigating our agricultural world, Harmony. And the colonists engaged them according to protocol. Destroyed 1 scout ship, damaged another. The 3rd escaped." Mireille allowed herself a small smile. "Did the Vraktan report this to their fleet?" "No, ma'am. They're keeping it quiet. They don't want to admit that weak humans hurt them." "Good. Let them stay ignorant a while longer." Mireille pulled up data on Harmony Colony. On paper, it was home to 50,000 farmers growing food for export. In reality, those farmers were retired soldiers, and their farming equipment could transform into weapons platforms in under 30 minutes. "How many colonies have been scouted?" she asked. 7 so far. All responded appropriately. "Minor damage to scouts, no losses on our side." The Vraktan must be confused. They send scouts, the scouts get hurt. But their leaders tell them humans are weak. Cognitive dissonance, perfect. Mireille turned to her communications officer. "Send a message to all colony defense forces. Rules of engagement remain unchanged. Respond to direct threats only. Make them think each incident is an isolated anomaly. Don't let them see the pattern yet." On the Vraktan flagship near Jupiter, Commander Vrix was indeed confused. She stood in her private quarters reviewing scout reports that hadn't been sent to Warlord Thex. 7 scouting missions. 4 resulted in damaged ships. 1 lost vessel. The official reports blamed equipment malfunctions and accidents, but Vrix had studied the data. In every case, the damage came from weapons fire. Precise, effective weapons fire. The humans were armed. Not heavily, perhaps, but more than they should be for a peaceful species. And their response times were too fast, their tactics too organized. This didn't match what Vraktan intelligence had gathered. She thought about mentioning this to Thex, but decided against it. The warlord would accuse her of cowardice. He was convinced humanity would surrender. Nothing would change his mind. But Vrix had survived this long by being careful. She began running simulations, trying to calculate what would happen if humans actually fought back. The computer asked her to input human military strength. She looked at the official estimates: 50 small warships, minimal weapons, no real combat experience. Then she changed the numbers. What if humans had been lying? What if they had 500 ships instead of 50? What if their weapons were modern instead of primitive? The simulation ran. The results made her feel cold. Even with triple the expected strength, humans would still lose against 300 Vraktan warships. But it wouldn't be the easy victory Thex predicted. It would be bloody. She ran another simulation. What if humans had 1,000 ships? The results showed a stalemate. Heavy losses on both sides. She ran one more. What if humans had 5,000 ships, all hidden, all modern, all crewed by trained warriors? The computer showed the Vraktan fleet being destroyed in 72 hours. Vrix deleted the simulation. It was impossible. No species could hide that much military strength. The Galactic Council monitored everything. There were treaties, inspections, regulations, but a small voice in her mind whispered, unless they found a way to hide it all. Unless everything we think we know about them is wrong. Back on Sentinel-7, Captain G1 called a meeting of her senior officers. They gathered in a secure briefing room, the door sealed and all recording devices disabled. 10 days remain, G1 said. In 10 days, the Vraktan expect our surrender. Instead, they're going to get a war. I need each of you to understand what that means. She activated a holographic display showing human space. The 30th day arrived. Across human space, people held their breath. On Earth, crowds gathered in public squares watching massive screens. On colony worlds, families huddled together. Everyone knew what was coming. Warlord Thex sat on his command throne, supremely confident. The time has expired. Have the humans sent their surrender? Commander Vrix checked her console. No, my lord. But there is an incoming transmission. Put it on screen, the view screen activated. A human face appeared, but it wasn't Ambassador Hyunwoo. It was General Mireille, wearing a military uniform covered in medals and insignia. Her eyes were cold as ice. She spoke 2 words. Come try. The transmission ended. Thex laughed, a deep, booming sound. They dare to challenge us, fools? All ships advance on Earth. We will crush their pathetic resistance and enslave the survivors. The Vraktan fleet began moving forward, 300 warships accelerating toward the inner solar system. On their sensors, they saw a handful of small human ships fleeing before them. It looked like the route Thex expected, but Commander Vrix was watching her instruments carefully. Something was wrong. The sensor readings kept flickering, showing ghost signals that appeared and disappeared. And the human ships weren't fleeing in panic, they were moving in coordinated patterns. "My lord," she began, "I recommend caution." "Silence," Thex roared. "Forward! Show these humans what real warriors look like." The Vraktan fleet crossed the orbit of Mars. That's when everything changed. Space itself seemed to tear open as thousands of human warships decloaked simultaneously. They had been there the entire time, hidden by technology the Vraktan didn't know existed. The handful of visible human ships became a massive armada. On Sentinel-7's bridge, Captain G1 watched the Vraktan fleet's formation collapse into chaos. "All weapons, prepare to fire. Daesung, transform the station." "Transformation sequence initiated," Daesung replied, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. Sentinel-7 began to change. The outer ring of civilian modules detached and folded away, revealing a warship hidden underneath. Weapon ports opened along the hull. The reactor core surged to combat power. Within 3 minutes, the peaceful space station had become a dreadnought bristling with weapons. "Transformation complete," Daesung announced. "All systems at full combat readiness. Lieutenant Sunmi, launch all fighters," Jiwan ordered. Sunmi's hands flew over her controls. "Launching now, Captain." Across the station, launch bays opened. 200 black fighters shot into space like angry hornets. Each one was piloted by a human who had trained their entire life for this moment, even if they hadn't known it. Sunmi herself climbed into her fighter, heart pounding. She had flown simulations 1,000 times. Now it was real. The alien ships on her screen weren't training drones. They were enemy vessels trying to kill her and everyone she loved. "Gold Squadron, form up on me," she commanded. "We're going for their sensor ships. Blind them first." Her squadron followed her lead, accelerating toward a cluster of Vraktan vessels. The enemy ships were larger, but the human fighters were faster and more maneuverable. Sunmi rolled her fighter sideways, dodging incoming fire, then launched a missile that struck the Vraktan sensor array dead center. "Target destroyed," she shouted. "Gold Squadron, pick your targets and engage." The Battle of the Belt had begun. In the asteroid field beyond Mars, Commander Tajin led the ambush that would become legendary in human military history. His flotilla of 30 ships had been hiding inside asteroids for 2 weeks, their hulls disguised with rock and ice. "Vraktan strike force approaching," reported his tactical officer. 20 heavy cruisers heading for the colony on Ceres. "They're not reaching Ceres," Tajin said grimly. "All ships break cover and engage." The asteroids exploded outward as human warships emerged. The Vraktan cruisers barely had time to react before human weapons tore into them. Tajin's flagship, the Defiance, led the charge, its railguns punching holes through Vraktan shields. "Target their engines," Tajin ordered. "Don't let any escape." The battle was brutal and close range. Vraktan ships were heavily armored, but human weapons were designed to penetrate that armor. Human ships were smaller, but they were faster and more agile. Where Vraktan tactics relied on overwhelming firepower and frontal assault, human tactics used speed, deception, and precision strikes. One Vraktan cruiser tried to ram Tajin's ship. He spun the Defiance sideways at the last second, and the enemy vessel passed by so close that he could see its hull plating. As it passed, he fired his weapons point-blank into its reactor core. The cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. "Scratch one enemy ship," Tajin reported calmly, though his hands were shaking. "All vessels continue engagement." On the Vraktan flagship, chaos reigned. Officers shouted conflicting reports. Screens showed Vraktan ships dying in dozens. Warlord Thex stood frozen, unable to process what was happening. "This is impossible," he roared. "Where did these ships come from?" "Our intelligence said." "Our intelligence was wrong," Vrick snapped back, abandoning all pretense of respect. "The humans lied. They've been hiding their military for decades. How many ships do they have?" Vrix checked her scanners, her blood running cold. "At least 7,000, my lord. Maybe more. And they're not fighting like civilians. These are trained warriors." On her screen, she watched human tactics unfold. They didn't just shoot at Vraktan ships, they targeted specific systems, engines, weapons, communications. They fought smart, concentrating fire to destroy one enemy vessel at a time, rather than spreading their attacks. They used the asteroids for cover, popping out to strike and then vanishing again, and they were singing. Across all frequencies, human voices sang battle songs, war chants, and aggressive music. It was psychological warfare meant to unnerve their enemies. It was working. At Sentinel-7, Sergeant Yunji led a boarding operation that would terrify the Vraktan. Her team of 50 Marines had captured a disabled Vraktan destroyer. Now they were fighting their way to the bridge. The Vraktan soldiers were bigger and stronger than humans, but Yunji's team had trained in Earth's gravity, which was heavier than most worlds. They were faster and more agile, and they fought with a ferocity that shocked their enemies. Yunji kicked open a door and rolled through, her rifle already firing. 3 Vraktan soldiers went down before they could react. Her team poured through behind her, moving with practiced precision. "Bridge ahead," shouted one of her Marines. They breached the bridge door with explosives. Yunji threw in a flash grenade and charged in while the defenders were still blind. Her combat knife found a Vraktan throat. Her rifle took down 2 more. Within 30 seconds, the bridge was secured. "This vessel is now property of Earth Defense Forces," she announced over the ship's intercom. "All Vraktan crew, lay down your weapons and proceed to the cargo bay. Resist and you will be eliminated." She tagged the ship's location for a recovery team and moved on. There were more Vraktan vessels to capture. General Mirai watched the battle from Earth, her command center processing data from thousands of engagement points. The numbers were clear. Humanity was winning. Vraktan ships were dying at a rate of 5 to 1. Their formations had collapsed. Their communications were disrupted. Their morale was breaking. "General, the Vraktan are attempting to retreat," reported an officer. "Pursuit squadrons, engage," Mirai ordered. "Don't let them regroup. And activate Protocol Phantom." Protocol Phantom active. Across the solar system, hidden weapons platforms activated. They had been disguised as satellites, space debris, and mining equipment. Now they revealed their true nature, adding their firepower to the human fleet. The Vraktan fleet was caught in a killing field. Everywhere they turned, humans were waiting. They tried to flee toward Jupiter, but human ships were already there. They tried to scatter, but human fighters hunted them down individually. Warlord Thex finally understood. He had made a terrible mistake. These weren't the weak, peaceful species he had studied. These were apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. "Commander Vrix, we must retreat," he admitted, his voice hollow. "Signal all ships to fall back to the Jupiter rendezvous point. We need to regroup." But Vrix was shaking her head. "My lord, we can't. The humans have cut off all our escape routes. We're surrounded. That's impossible. We have 300 ships. We had 300 ships. Current count shows 147 vessels still combat capable. And that number is dropping every minute." On the view screen, another Vraktan warship exploded. Then another. Then 3 more in quick succession. Captain Jiwan's voice came over the general communication channel, broadcast to every ship in the solar system, both human and Vraktan. "Attention Vraktan forces. This is Captain Jiwan of the Earth Defense Fleet. You came to our home. You threatened our families. You demanded we surrender or die. We have chosen a third option. We fight. This is your only chance to surrender. Lay down your weapons and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed. You have 5 minutes to decide." Thex wanted to refuse, to keep fighting, to go down as a warrior. But he looked at his remaining ships, at his dying crews, at the impossible odds. Pride wouldn't save them. Pride would just kill them. "Commander Vrix," he said quietly, "signal the fleet. We surrender." Vrix transmitted the surrender code across the battlefield. The Vraktan surrender lasted exactly 3 days. Then Warlord Thex escaped from custody, seized control of a damaged warship, and fled back to Vraktan space with a message. The war was not over. In the command center on Earth, General Mirai read the intercepted transmission with cold anger. Thex is calling for reinforcements. He's telling his people that humans are dangerous and must be destroyed before we grow stronger. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood beside her, his diplomatic mask finally discarded. "How many ships can the Vraktan muster?" "Intelligence estimates another 500 vessels, spread across their territory. But they'll need time to gather them." "Then we don't give them that time," Hyunwoo said flatly. "We take the war to them. We end this before more humans die." It was agreed. For the first time in 70 years, humanity would wage an offensive war. Admiral Ji-hoon commanded the Northern Fleet, 2,000 warships that jumped into Vraktan space with devastating speed. His target was the Korthak shipyards where Vraktan vessels were built. All ships battle formation Delta, Ji-hoon ordered as they emerged from FTL. Remember, we're here to disable, not destroy. These shipyards employ workers who had no say in their leaders' decisions. His fleet moved like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. They bypassed the defensive stations and struck directly at the shipyard's power cores. Within an hour, the entire facility was offline, its workers evacuating to nearby planets. Shipyards neutralized with 0 worker casualties, reported his tactical officer. Defensive fleet is retreating. Ji-hoon nodded. Good. Mark the shipyards for capture teams, then move to the next target. We have a lot of ground to cover. Meanwhile, Captain Yuna led a very different kind of warfare. Her stealth ship slipped through Vraktan space like ghosts invisible to their sensors. They didn't fire a single shot. Instead, they deployed something far more insidious. Information. Hacking their planetary networks now, reported Yuna's cyber warfare specialist. Uploading the truth packages. Across Vraktan worlds, every computer, every screen, every communication device suddenly displayed the same information. Recordings of Warlord Thex threatening genocide. Images of Vraktan atrocities against conquered species. Proof that their government had lied about human weakness. Evidence of corruption, of wars fought for greed rather than honor. The Vraktan people had believed they were righteous conquerors, bringing order to the galaxy. Now they learned the truth. And they were horrified. Captain, we're detecting civil unrest on 17 Vraktan worlds, reported her communications officer. Protests, riots, some military units are refusing orders. Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Good. The best way to win a war is to make the enemy not want to fight it. On the colony world of Tarsus, Major Minho led ground forces liberating species that the Vraktan had conquered decades ago. The Tarsans were a small, peaceful people who had been enslaved to mine precious metals. Major, the Vraktan garrison is surrendering, reported his sergeant. They say they want no part of this war anymore. Minho approached the Vraktan commander, a young officer who looked more scared than hostile. Why surrender now? Because we saw the truth, the Vraktan said. We thought we were heroes. We were told you humans were evil, that we were protecting the galaxy from you, but our leaders lied. They started this war for conquest, not defense. Many of us don't want to fight anymore. Minho studied the alien carefully, then made a decision. Your soldiers will be held as prisoners of war, treated fairly according to our codes. But you personally, I'm giving you a choice. Go back to Vraktan space. Tell your people what you saw here. Tell them we're not monsters. Tell them this war doesn't have to continue. The Vraktan officer nodded slowly. I will. Thank you for showing mercy. After he left, Minho's sergeant asked, Do you think he'll actually do it? Probably not, Minho admitted. But maybe. And maybe is better than definitely not. They turned their attention to the Tarsans, who emerged slowly from their mining tunnels, blinking in the sunlight. They had been slaves for 30 years. Now they were free. An elderly Tarsan approached Minho carefully. You are the humans? The ones who defeated the Vraktan? Yes, Minho said gently. You're free now. Your people's suffering is over. The Tarsan began to cry. Others joined him. Soon, hundreds of former slaves were weeping, embracing, laughing. They had forgotten what freedom felt like. Watching this, Minho felt his resolve strengthen. This was why they fought. Not for conquest. Not for revenge. For this, to free the oppressed and give them back their dignity. But not everyone was happy with how the war was progressing. Dr. Borum stood in her laboratory, arguing with General Mirai via video link. You want me to deploy the biological weapon? Borum asked, her voice tight with anger. The one that targets Vraktan DNA specifically? It would end the war in days, Mirai replied. No more human casualties, no more risk. It would also be genocide. That weapon doesn't distinguish between soldiers and civilians. It would kill every Vraktan in the galaxy. They threaten to do the same to us. And that makes it right? Borum slammed her hand on the desk. We're better than them, General. We have to be better than them. If we use this weapon, we become exactly what Thex accused us of being, monsters. Mirai was silent for a long moment. You're right, she finally said. I'm sorry. I let anger cloud my judgment. The weapon stays sealed. Borum felt relief wash over her. Thank you, General. After the call ended, Borum looked at the container holding the bioweapon. She had spent 2 years developing it, knowing it might save human lives. But using it would cost humanity its soul. Some prices were too high to pay. She picked up the container and carried it to the incinerator. The weapon that could have ended the war in days was destroyed in seconds. She felt no regret. Commander Vrix, meanwhile, had taken control of the Vraktan resistance. After Thex fled, she had assumed command of the remaining fleet. But she wasn't fighting to conquer anymore. She was fighting to save her people from complete destruction. Ambassador Hyunwoo has agreed to meet with me, she told her officers. I'm going to negotiate a real surrender. One that ends this war properly. The warlords will call you a traitor, warned her second-in-command. The warlords started a war we couldn't win. I'm going to end it before we lose everything. Vrix looked at the faces of her crew, young Vraktan who had believed the lies they were told. We were wrong. We need to admit it. The meeting took place on a neutral station. Vrix expected the human negotiators to gloat, to demand harsh terms, to humiliate her. Instead, Hyunwoo greeted her with respect. Commander Vrix, thank you for coming. I'm here to surrender formally, Vrix said, to negotiate terms for my people. I know, and I appreciate your courage in doing so. Hyunwoo gestured to a seat. The terms we offer are fair. The Vraktan Empire will be dissolved. Your people will govern themselves, but without the ability to wage conquest wars. Your military will be reduced to defensive forces only. You'll pay reparations to the species you conquered, but not so much that your economy collapses. Vrix listened carefully. These terms were generous, far better than what the Vraktan would have offered a defeated enemy. Why are you being so reasonable? Because we don't want to destroy you, Hyunwoo said simply. We want to end the war. We want peace. Crushing you utterly would just create generations of resentment and future conflict. Better to leave you with dignity and help you rebuild into better neighbors. We threatened to genocide you. You did. And we defeated you. That's enough. We're not interested in revenge. We're interested in ensuring this never happens again. Vrix felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. The other warlords won't accept these terms easily. Then we'll deal with them. But I hope we can do it with your help, not against you. Vrix made her decision. You have my help. I'll convince as many Vraktan as I can to accept the new order. While diplomacy progressed, Warlord Thex was making his final stand. He had gathered 300 loyalist ships, Vraktan who refused to surrender, who believed they could still win. He was leading them toward Earth for one last attack. Captain Jiwon intercepted him with Sentinel-7 and a small fleet. She could have brought overwhelming force, could have destroyed him easily. Instead, she chose to face him directly. Warlord Thex, she broadcast. You're outnumbered. Your empire has surrendered. This is pointless. Stand down. Thex appeared on her screen, his face twisted with rage. I will never surrender to inferior species. I will destroy you or die trying. Then you'll die, Jiwon said sadly. I'm sorry it has to be this way. The final battle was brief but intense. Thex fought with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. His ship, the Pride of Vraktan, was a massive dreadnought, the most powerful vessel in the Vraktan fleet. But Jiwon had studied Vraktan tactics for years. She knew how Thex would fight. Aggressive, direct, relying on superior firepower. So she fought the opposite way. Defensive, evasive, wearing him down. Sentinel-7 took hits, but its shields held. Meanwhile, Jiwon's weapons targeted the Pride's weak points, slowly dismantling it piece by piece. Thex grew more desperate, more reckless. His attacks became wild and unfocused. Finally, Jiwon saw her opening. Daesung focused all firepower on his bridge. End this now. Firing, Daesung said quietly. The concentrated beam struck the Pride's command center. The dreadnought lurched. Systems fail. 3 months after the war ended, the galaxy was still trying to understand what had happened. The peaceful humans had revealed themselves as the most dangerous military force in known space. Every species was reassessing their relationship with Earth. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood before the Galactic Council, addressing representatives from 30 different species. Many looked at him with fear now, some with respect, a few with anger at being deceived. You lied to us, accused the Taurian delegate. For 70 years, you pretended to be weak. You made us think you were peaceful. We are peaceful, Hyunwoo replied calmly. We simply aren't helpless. There's a difference. We never started a war. We never threatened anyone. We just ensured that if someone threatened us, we could defend ourselves. By building secret armies. By hiding weapons across your territory. By learning from our history, Hyunwoo said firmly. Humanity nearly destroyed itself in wars. We know what violence costs. We know how terrible war is. That's exactly why we prepared for it. So we would never be victims again, and so we could end conflicts quickly if they began. Every weapon we built was defensive. Every soldier we trained was taught to value life. We didn't want to use any of it. The Vraktin forced our hand. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, the eldest delegate, a Keltharian who had witnessed 3 centuries of galactic history, spoke. What you say has truth. But now we must address the reality. Earth has 7,000 warships and technology superior to anything else in the galaxy. What guarantee do we have that you won't use this power to conquer others? Hyunwoo had prepared for this question. The same guarantee we've given for 70 years. Our actions. Yes, we have the power to conquer. We've had it all along, but we didn't. Instead, we traded fairly. We helped other species. We shared technology, culture, and knowledge. The only time we drew our weapons was to defend ourselves. We're proposing a new treaty. Earth will maintain our military. We won't make the mistake of being defenseless again, but we'll also share our defensive technology with any species that wants it. We'll help you defend yourselves too. Why would you do that? Asked the Taurian delegate suspiciously. Because a galaxy where everyone can defend themselves is a galaxy with less conquest and more peace. The Vraktin attacked us because they thought we were weak. They won't attack you if you're strong. The council debated for hours. Eventually, they agreed to the new treaty. Earth would have a permanent seat on the council. In return, humanity would help other species build proper defenses. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. On Vraktin Prime, Commander Vrix was addressing her people. Warlord Thex was dead. The Empire was dissolved. Now came the hard part, rebuilding their society without conquest and war. For generations, we were taught that strength meant domination, Vrix said to the gathered crowd. That being warriors meant conquering others. The humans taught us differently. They showed us that true strength is having power and choosing not to abuse it. That being warriors can mean protecting rather than conquering. Not everyone accepted this. Some Vraktin refused to give up their old ways. There were protests, small rebellions. But slowly, gradually, Vrix was winning the argument. Especially with the help of young Vraktin who had seen the truth about their empire's lies. Vrix had an unexpected ally in this work, Major Minho. He had stayed on Vraktin Prime with a team of humans, helping to train a new Vraktin defense force. Not an army of conquest, but peacekeepers who would protect Vraktin worlds without threatening others. You're good at this, Vrix told him one day during a break in training, teaching warriors to protect instead of attack. Minho shrugged. It's what human soldiers learn. We're trained to be dangerous, but we're also trained to know when not to use that danger. It's harder than just fighting, honestly. Any fool can pull a trigger. It takes wisdom to know when not to. Your people have that wisdom. We learned it the hard way, Minho said quietly. We almost destroyed ourselves learning it. I'm glad you get to learn from our mistakes instead of making your own. Captain Jiwon had retired from active service as she promised herself. She lived on a small colony world now, teaching at a school. Her students had no idea their kindly teacher had commanded one of humanity's most powerful warships. But sometimes, late at night, she would look up at the stars and remember. The battles, the decisions, the people who had died under her command. She had won the war, but the cost was something she would carry forever. Lieutenant Sunmi, now Captain Sunmi, visited her old commander regularly. The fleet wants you back, she said during one visit. They're offering you an admiralty. I'm done with war, Jiwon replied gently. I fought because I had to. Now it's your generation's turn to keep the peace. I trust you to do it better than we did. I hope so. Sunmi looked troubled. Sometimes I worry we showed too much strength. That species are afraid of us now instead of respecting us. Fear and respect are neighbors, Jiwon said. Right now they fear us, but over time if we act wisely, that fear will turn to respect. It's not about having the biggest weapons. It's about having weapons and choosing not to use them except when absolutely necessary. Sunmi nodded slowly. I'll remember that. Daesung had returned to civilian life as well, working as an engineer at a shipyard. But now his work was public. He was designing the defensive systems that Earth had promised to share with other species. "It's strange," he told his colleague one day. "For years I worked on secret military projects, hiding what I did from everyone. Now I'm doing the same work but publicly, to help others defend themselves. It feels honest." His colleague, a young woman named Jiha, laughed. "That's because it is honest. We're not hiding anymore. We're showing the galaxy who we really are. People who prepare for the worst but hope for the best." Dr. Borum had moved into medical research, using her scientific skills to develop cures rather than weapons. She was working on treatments for species harmed by Vraktan weapons, trying to heal some of the damage the war had caused. General Mirai remained in command of Earth's military. She knew someone had to. Someone had to maintain the vigilance to ensure humanity never forgot the lessons of preparedness. But she had instituted strict oversight protocols. Every weapon system was reviewed by civilian committees. Every military action required justification and approval. "We're the guardians now," she told her officers during a review. "Not conquerors, not aggressors, guardians. We maintain the strength that ensures peace, but we never use that strength except in defense. That's the balance we have to keep." Some of the freed species chose to ally formally with Earth. The Tarsans, grateful for their liberation, asked to join the human territories. Earth agreed, but as equal partners, not as conquered subjects. "You're welcome to join us," Major Minho had told them. "But you'll have your own government, your own laws. We're not here to rule you. We're here to stand beside you." The Tarsans built a memorial to the humans who had freed them. It showed a human soldier offering a hand to a Tarsan, helping them stand up. The inscription read, "They could have conquered us. Instead, they freed us." 1 year after the war, Earth held a ceremony. It was a memorial for all those who had died, human and Vraktan alike, because even enemy soldiers were still people who had died for what they believed in. Captain Jiwan attended, wearing her old uniform for the first time since retiring. She laid flowers at the memorial wall, where names were carved in stone, her crew members who hadn't made it home, the young pilots who died in their fighters. Even the name of Warlord Thex, because remembering the enemy dead was part of honoring the cost of war. Ambassador Hyunwoo stood at the podium, addressing the thousands gathered. "We won the war, but winning isn't something to celebrate. War should never be celebrated. It should be mourned. We remember today what war cost, so we never forget why we work so hard for peace." Commander Vrix was there too, representing the Vraktan people. She stood beside Hyunwoo, both former enemies now working together to build a better galaxy. "My people started this war," Vrix said, when it was her turn to speak. "We believed we were strong. We believed might made right. We learned we were wrong. Thank you for teaching us without destroying us. Thank you for showing mercy when you could have shown vengeance." After the ceremony, children from different species played together in the memorial gardens. Human children ran alongside Tarsan children. Even some young Vraktan were there, laughing and playing games. They didn't understand the war yet. They just knew they were friends. An elderly woman watched them play, tears in her eyes. "Is this what we fought for?" she asked her grandson, a veteran of the war. "Yes, grandmother," he replied. "This exactly. So they can play without fear. So they can grow up in a galaxy that's safer than the one we inherited." On Earth, in a museum dedicated to the war, a new exhibit opened. It showed the full scope of human military might, the thousands of hidden warships, the secret weapons, the concealed bases. Visitors walked through in awe and fear, seeing just how powerful humanity had been all along. But the final room of the exhibit held something different. No weapons, no ships, just a simple video playing on a screen. It showed that same playground, those same children playing together, human, Vraktan, Tarsan, and others, all friends. Below the screen was a plaque. It read, "We showed them our fangs.